and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, January 12th, 2023, and this is episode 242. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, where it is pouring rain. It's dark and gloomy and wet, and it will be for the foreseeable future. But it is nowhere near as bad as what the folks in California have been going through and are going through. I know some of my viewers hail from there, and I just want to say I hope you're not too adversely affected by all of the rain and flooding and power outages. I want to let you know I'm thinking of you and wishing you well. And I hope the rest of you are doing well too, wherever you may live, and that your 2023 is off to a good start. Before I get into what I'm working on, I just want to remind you that there are a couple of make-alongs taking place in the Ravelry group. The first is a very loosey-goosey mail, which will run all year long. It's called Another Year of Stash, and all you have to do to participate is talk about what you're making from your yarn, pattern, and fiber stash in the chatter thread, and there will be a prize for that drawn each month. The other make-along is more structured. There's a few more rules to follow. It also involves stash. It's called the Yarn of the Month Club, where you are encouraged to knit, crochet, weave, or spin something from stash each month. And you have to do a starting post and a finished projects post, and there is a minimum requirement involved. So make sure you check out the first posts of each of those threads to see all of the rules, and I hope to see you there. It's off to a good start, I'll have to say that. It's nice to see everybody chatting. I feel like I've sort of been a bit behind so far this month, although I'm gradually catching up. I'm also taking part in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works soy mail this year. That's Stop Shooting on Yourself. And I finally got around to making my wish list and posting it in that group, and posting a little bit in the main soy mail thread. But I did that and then realized I didn't have any pictures of anything that I'm working on, so I need to remedy that. I tend to be pretty good about doing FO pics, but not so much the works in progress photos. I am wearing my Throwback Thursday. It seemed a logical choice since today's Thursday. It was a little chilly this morning, so I thought I would put this on. It is by Mary Annarella of Lyrical Knits. I knit it this past year out of some Malabrigo Arroyo in the Jupiter colorway. I'll just give a quick stand up a little bit. It's a very casual sport weight sweater. Has cables running down. I think cables and lace, or just lace running down the bottom. Has a split hem, rolled collar. Super cozy, super casual, super comfortable. Perfect for weather like today. All right, first up are what I'm calling my Cuddle Time Cup of Tea Socks. The pattern is My Cup of Tea Socks by Robin Lynn. I am knitting them out of some Fiber Nymph Dye Works yarn. It is the Mountain Tweed BFL base in the Cuddle Time colorway. That was the January 2022 colorway for the Encore Yarn and Fiber Club. There's all the info there. So I've actually done a fair bit of work on these since I last showed them to you. I just slipped one of them on a sock blocker so you would get a pretty good look. So they are a top-down sock, as you can tell, 64 stitches in the pattern. they start with this 2x2 rib, and then you do this pattern down the front. Back is plain. I've knit these once before, and when I did them before, I did a short row heel, but I decided to do a traditional heel flap and gusset this time, as the pattern indicates. And I had some leftovers from a mini of the plain vanilla colorway of some Mountain Tweed BFL, and so I added that for the heel. I kind of knit half of this stripe before I did the heel, partly because it was the 7 inches that I like my legs to be when I do this type of heel. But also, normally when I do a self-striping plain sock, I will knit to the end of a stripe before I start my heel, and that way it just naturally picks up with the new color of a stripe when I do the gusset. But in this case, because this sock had a pattern, the color was going to end sort of mid-stripe, so I decided just to give myself a little bit of a cushion of a few rows. And as you can see, I was able to continue my striping sequence on the front, and then didn't have any weird color changing around the gusset. So bring that in nice and close so you can see the pretty colors and also that stitch pattern. I'm going to flip this just around on the sock blocker so you can see what the front of the sock looks like. There you go. Quite enjoyed working on these, and I'd like to finish them up pretty soon. Just to say they're done. I am finding, I think I have 5 whips to talk about today. I did not bring in my Aurora cabin shawl that I showed last week because I've only put a few stripes into it. Didn't feel like it was, you know, enough to be worth talking about. But it made me realize that even though I don't mind having multiple projects on the go, I am feeling like maybe I have a few too many for my comfort level. And so I am going to try and finish a couple of them up pretty soon so that I can just have a little more breathing space, I guess. That's not even the right word, but just not feel quite so overwhelmed. All right, another pair of socks that is actually very close to being done are what I'm calling my Victorian Christmas stripy socks. This one is ready for the toe. The other one is about right there. So I've got just a, I don't know, 2.5, maybe 2.5 more inches to do before it's also ready for its toe. So I am knitting this out of a couple of different yarns. I'm striping it myself. So the first is this skein. The colorway is Victorian Christmas, hence the name of my socks. And this is Leo and Roxy. This is their 80/20 sock in the Victorian, oh, I already told you, Victorian Christmas colorway. And with my Sweet Fiber Yarns Holiday Sock Club, I received 4 minis, and I'm using 3 of them in this sock. So that's the Sweet Fiber label. It's the Super Sweet Sock, which is also an 80 Superwash Merino 20% nylon blend. The pinky one, pinky red, is raspberry. The greeny yellow is moss, and then the forest green is called marshland. So there's the label. There's the info. And here's the sock. So I'm going to bring that in closer so you can get a closer look at the really pretty colors. I did an Eye of Partridge heel on this one. It's a 64 stitch top down sock on a 2mm needle, which is what I generally do for a plain stockinette sock. Now I have a decision to make. So I was hoping that when I got to the end of the sock, I was hoping that it would end with a plain stripe and that I'd be ready for this dark green for the toe. But as you can see, it ends on a raspberry stripe. So what I'm thinking about doing, just to keep, you know, the theme going, I think I'm going to do the next 6 rows of the toe, or the first 6 rows of the toe with the main color, and then switch to the marshland. And even though the proportions might not be quite the same, because it probably only come to about that far, I think I'm going to do that anyway. And that way I'll have coordinating heels, toes, and cuffs. So I like working on these, but one thing with joining in new colors every 6 rounds, by the way, I'll do six rounds of the main color and 4 rounds of each contrasting color. It is a bit of a nuisance, you know, having to begin and end my new yarn every 6 rounds, or every 4 rounds, depending. Well, I don't cut the main color. I'm carrying that throughout, but I am joining in each color as I go. And so I'll be ready to get back to just a plain vanilla sock that I don't even have to think about, that I can just go, you know, knit, knit, knit. But I do like the way these are knitting up, and they will go into my holiday and winter socks collection to be worn next year. I explained last week, I am doing what's supposed to be a jogless join technique. I'm hoping after I block it might be a little less obvious where I'm joining, but you know what? If it's not, it's not. I'm not too concerned. So yeah, hoping to finish these up soon and move on to a true plain vanilla sock that I don't have to think about too much. Gonna have a sip of tea before I go further. I am drinking a new to me tea. I just received an order from Granville Island Tea Company. This is called Star of India. It's just a black tea blend. It's quite mild. I do quite like it. I can highly recommend their teas. If you're in the Vancouver area, they do free shipping with orders over $35 if you live in the Vancouver area. And even though I live about 100K away, they still consider me as part of the Vancouver area. So a good deal. I used to buy a lot of David's tea, but they closed down the store in our mall. I think it was a decision that was precipitated by COVID, and so I do miss having them there. But this is I just love their teas. So I can highly recommend them. All right, next up is Sean by Elizabeth Doherty. It looks like this. And I've actually got quite a bit done on it this past week. I am knitting it from Rowan felted tweed. I just hit myself in the nose with my needles. Way to go, Carol. Whoops, my label's caught. Rowan felted tweed. Don't know if I can read what it's made from because I don't have my glasses on, and the writing is very small. 50% wool, 25 alpaca, and 25 viscose, I think it says. Let's see if you can read that. It's right there. Not sure if that's blurry or not. In any case, I am using 2 colors. Clay, which is number 117, and Rage, which is color 150. Can you tell I like red? My favorite color. I don't remember where I was last week. I don't think I had split for the sleeves yet. But I have split for the sleeves. I am just a few rows from switching to the plain knitting. I'm almost done all the patterning on here. I'm just gonna put this bag down on the floor. It's gonna slip off my lap anyway. So I'm gonna bring that closer too, so you can see all the fun stitch patterns on it. Whoops. And I have it on 2 needles just for the purposes. Uh-oh, that was what? Uh-oh, my needle just fell off. Obviously, it was becoming unwound. This is my Chaogu lace needles. I do not see the needle tip, but it can't have gone far. I have point protectors on all my needles, but it does have a lot of length to it, so I should be okay. That would not be good. Anyway, I've split for the sleeves. I am just a few rows away from starting the stockinette section. And I was a little bit worried about the fit. First of all, while I was working on it, I worried that it might be too big here, but it's not. I deliberately chose a size that was not going to be oversized. I tend to prefer a fitted sweater. My latest concern is that it might be, well, I was worried it was going to be too small. When I put it on, it felt like perhaps my depth of my yoke was not long enough. And I knit on and I tried it on again because this was kind of sitting funny on me. But as I've knit the yolks further, I'm sorry, I'm not saying this very eloquently at all. The more I knit, the better it fits this way. This doesn't sit up funny like it was before when I first was trying it on. Now it's back where it, it belongs. So I think it's going to be okay. But I still do have, it's not that it's too tight around, but it feels, there's some feeling of restriction in this area here with where my arms are. And it reminded me of my Birkin that I knit a few years ago. And actually what I think I'm going to do is just go slip that on for you, and then I can explain things a little bit better. But I did try it on, and I think I'm going to be okay. So before I go do that, I'm just going to stand up a little bit so you can see the full yoke of this. You can see where it's landing just sort of right under my bust. And you can see that the underarm is landing at my underarm. So it's the yoke is not too deep. I was worried that it was maybe too shallow, but I think it's going to be okay. So I'll be right back with my Birkin, and then I can explain to you more what I mean by all of that. Presto changeo. So here's my Birkin by Caitlin Hunter, which I knit a few years ago. I'll provide a link to the project page below, as I will with everything else. So this has a very similar construction. It's a round yoked pullover sweater. And I know when this sweater was first out, or this pattern was first out, there were a lot of concerns with the way that the yoke was fitting people. And I ended up knitting and unknitting and reknitting this yoke a number of times. And what I ended up doing was actually splitting for my sleeve just a little bit sooner than the pattern indicated, because I found that when I split it where it said, this was sitting kind of funny here. But I also find that even though, now here you can see, I've got lots of room to move around. I can, you know, lift my arms, although I have to do that, but I think with a lot of t-shirts and things we do that anyway. But I mean, I have a lot of room to move around, but I can definitely feel, especially across my back and here in my upper sleeve, I can feel a bit of restriction. And that's what I'm finding, especially with the sleeves on the Sean sweater. I did lay this out and I put the Sean on top of it, and I'm finding that the fit is pretty well the same. Now I did, as you can see also, I knit Birkin to be a very fitted sweater. I did some waist shaping here, and that's because I prefer a more close-fitting sweater as a rule. And so based on everything, I'm going to proceed with Sean the way it is, and I think that it will be fine. What I might do is once I finish the color work on the yoke, maybe I'll do about 1 inch of plain stockinette, and then I think I might do the sleeves and get them going, and then be able to try it on sort of as a whole. I may even decide to block it and then just see how it fits, because I just don't want to go too far and then decide that it's not going to work. So, but if it fits like Birkin, it's something I can live with. It's definitely, like I say, I've got room to move. But unlike the Throwback Thursday that I was wearing, there is a bit of a feeling of constriction in this general bottom of the yoke area. So I don't know, have you guys experienced anything like that? Is it just because if I made a looser sweater, would I have less problem with that? I don't know. I just know I don't want a whole bunch of extra fabric like kind of in this area. I prefer something more closely fit. Anyway, let's move on. I might as well leave this on. I have cast on a couple of new patterns or projects since last week. I did show you the yarns for both of these. The first is a pair of socks with my #1 yarn from my personal sock yarn club. It is from Sweet Fiber again. It is the Super Sweet Sock in the Sugar Plum Dance colorway. And as you can see, that was from the Holiday 2022 Sock Yarn Club. So I mentioned last week that I thought I would perhaps knit a pair of socks by this Handmade Life. That is Olivia Villarreal. And she just has some beautiful sock patterns. And sure enough, when I went looking, I came across this pair called Fairy Maiden. And they just spoke to me. And then after I thought, wow, Sugar Plum Dance is the colorway name, and so I'm calling these my Sugar Plum Fairy Maiden socks. They are socks fit for a fairy. And I cast them on, and I've knit a couple of pattern repeats. And I really like how they're coming along so far. Now, I have to say, this 3 rows of the pattern repeat involve 1x1 cables. And as written, I was finding it rather tedious switching out the yarns every time. And so I did it for, I think I did 1 pattern repeat, and I thought, I just cannot see myself knitting this whole pair of socks this way. It will drive me crazy. And so I took it back to the cuff, and I switched to doing right twist and left twist instead. And that is so much more bearable. And so that's what I'm doing, and I don't think you can tell the difference. So coming along nicely. 5 out of the 8 rows are just plain knitting, ribbing, sorry. They're just plain ribbing. So it's kind of nice. You just have to concentrate for 3 out of the 8 rows. So not bad at all. And I did do my cuff a little bit longer than it said. So this is I think another 64 stitch sock, if I remember correctly, and it's a 2mm needle, which is my go-to. And I'm using my red lace Chalgu, which are my favorite sock needles. Another sip of tea. And lastly, I cast on Pretty Thing by Stephanie Pearl McPhee, the yarn, also known as the Yarn Harlot. So it is a lacy cowl. There's a picture of it being worn. And I'm knitting it from my January Yarn of the Month Club yarn. It is this absolutely luxurious cashmere silk lace weight that I bought in Toronto, where coincidentally is where Stephanie Pearl McPhee lives. And she was actually at the same fiber festival that I was attending, which was the Fiber Frolic. Which is not why I'm doing this pattern, it's just a coincidence. So this is Filatura de Crosa, the Golden Line Superior in color 12, and it is 70% cashmere and 30% silk. Hard to read because of the lights. Sort of, yes, sort of, no. All that gold lettering. I had bought this as part of a kit to make a lace scarf, which I began and promptly stopped doing because it was really boring. So last week I had shown you some beads that I had bought to use with this yarn, and I only had 83 of them, and I was really kind of puzzled about where I would place the beads, because I wanted them to be kind of throughout, you know, have a scattering of them throughout. But I, sorry, I'm just trying to see if I've got this inside or outside. It's all twisted on my needles. Anyway, I finally decided where I was going to put the beads. I went to place my first bead, and then I realized that they were too small to use. I couldn't even get my smallest crochet hook through the eye to thread them, you know, to bring up a loop through like I normally would. And so that took care of that. So they are, this will not be beaded, which in a way is not a bad thing. So I'm just looking at this and trying to figure out, it's twisting around on my circular needles, and I was just trying to figure out where I am, which is the right side. I think this is, okay, so I am knitting these on a 3.5mm, 40 centimeter or 16-inch circular needle. It's driving me a little crazy. Hang on. I can't believe this. All right. There. That should take care of it. Anyway, I have about a quarter of the pattern done. There's only 61 rows to the pattern. Now let me see. Maybe if I put, I'm gonna see if I've got some blank, a fair bit of blank. Ah, perfect. Got a piece of paper here that's blank that I'm going to put behind it so you can actually see the lace pattern. Otherwise, I don't think you'll be able to. So this is proving to be a lot harder to show than I was expecting it to be. It just does not want to cooperate. And I do not want to lose the stitches off it. Okay. There's part of it. It has ribbing at the beginning with this triangular garter stitch section. See if I bring this one around, it might work better. There we go. There, that's better. So there's the triangles, or triangle, and then the ribs, twisted rib section. There we go. Fascinating, right? Hitting it out of the park today. Anyway, it is very tidy, as you can see. I actually knit about 10 rows. I was worried that because this is lace weight that I would not, that it would not be big enough around. So I cast on an extra pattern repeat. I worked about 10 rows and then I tried it on. I just realized I've been showing you, I think, the wrong side. Not that it matters, it's very similar on both. Anyway, I tried it on. I put this onto some waste yarn, put it over my head, and it was too big. So I took it out and recast on the number of stitches that the pattern calls for, and I'm just working it up as the pattern indicates. And I think it'll be okay, even though it looks really small. I'm also thinking about it, wondering if the length is going to be long enough. This is only going to be about 5-ish inches, maybe a little more than that in length. No, probably about 5 inches in length when it's all said and done. So I'm going to gauge when I've finished. There's like this is the beginning and it ends the same way, and then there are 3 repeats of another pattern that goes in between there. So I'm going to do through the 3 repeats, and then I will assess whether I want this to be taller or not. And if I do, then I'll do an extra repeat. If not, then I'll do this ending on the other, or this panel on the other end. I apologize. I'm just, if I could be all thumbs with my words, I'd be all thumbs. I can't think of I'm tongue-tied. Is that the right word? Anyway, it is very beautiful so far. I am not particularly enjoying working on this project, not because the yarn isn't amazing and not because the pattern isn't good. It's because I'm not enjoying these needles. They are some really old, let's see if I've got the case in my bag. This is a gorgeous project bag that I made for myself. Yeah, these are, I don't even know what the brand name is. I bought these a million years ago when I worked in a yarn shop, and they are just a really blunt tip. I'm used to working, you know, with my chow-goos, and then they're the lace needles, they're much sharper tip. These stitches get caught on this join here a lot, especially like when I'm bringing the stitches up to knit them. They tend to get caught like that, so I have to constantly bring them up. And the small circumference is a bit of a nuisance, and the yarn is so fine just this lace weight. So the actual process of this one, not so great, but this is a pattern that's been on my radar ever since the Yarn Harlot put it out. And I've had it in mind for this yarn for a long time. So it's definitely going to knit up kind of more loosely than the original. You can see that it's much tighter gauge or tighter knit to it. It also is knit with a fingering weight yarn. So it's going to look different. It's not going to have as much structure to it, but I think it will be beautiful when it's done. I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. And it just feels, oh, I just can't even describe how soft and so light. You can hardly feel this in your hands. It's so light. So stay tuned. I should hopefully even have this done by next week, because I did all this between last night and this morning. So it didn't take me very long to knit a quarter of it. So it's not going to take me, you know, too long to knit the rest of it. So yeah, maybe it'll even be finished next week. We'll see. Oh, I just heard my furnace kick in. Hopefully it's not too noisy or distracting. I have some acquisitions this week. You might be saying, but Carol, it's another year of stash. What are you doing buying yarn already? Well, I bought it last year. In fact, I ordered it back in November from someone on Etsy from the UK, and it just arrived a couple days ago, I think. When I was working on I knit a couple of pairs of West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas socks this year. And when I started working on them, I realized I didn't have the 3 most current colorways of their Christmas yarn, and I decided that I wanted it. So I found someone who had all 3 in stock, and they ended up being the ones who had it all in stock, and even though they were in the UK, cost me less for shipping, and so I ordered them. But I know the UK's had issues with their postal service lately, and Canada's been slow too, but they finally arrived. So this one is vintage Tinsel. I love the sparkles. This one is called Silent Night. I think Silent Night came out before vintage Tinsel. And then this year's was Gingerbread. And this looks like a more traditional kind of West Yorkshire Spinners type of yarn. So there's the 3 of them together. I think I've had enough Christmas socks for a while. I've done quite a few in the last month or 2. And so what I think I'm going to do is just put these away in my commercial sock yarn bin, and probably cast on a pair closer to Christmas this year. So fun acquisitions. I guess they don't actually count as stash yarn because I did receive them after the 1st of the year, even though I ordered them before. Oh well, that's okay. I can't win a prize in my own make-along anyway. That's it for yarny talk. Now it's on to life stuff. And I didn't think I had that much to talk about till I started writing everything down. So I'll keep it pretty brief. As I mentioned last episode, we had plans this past weekend to take our 8-year-old granddaughter shopping for her birthday present. So for the first time ever, we gave her money for her birthday. And what I didn't mention is that rather than just giving her a card with money in it, we did the whole present within a present within a present thing. And we figured she was just the right age to appreciate it, and it made it more fun to open than just opening up a card. So we got quite a kick out of watching her do that a couple of weeks ago. And speaking of getting quite a kick out of watching her, oh my goodness, it was so fun. Uh, just to listen to her and see the kinds of things that she was attracted to, and all the plans she had. What stands out is we were in this store. If you're in Canada, it's called Claire's. I don't know if it's a US or UK chain also. But it's a shop that's aimed, I would say, at older kids and young teenagers. Has a lot of earrings, hair accessories like headbands and things, little purses, wallets, little makeup cases, a lot of things in, bright colors, and a lot of what I would call kind of cutesy designs. So while we were in there, um, I think I showed her a couple of things, and she looked at them and she said, "Well, I'm older now. I don't do cute anymore." And I had to laugh because as she's saying this, she is wearing one of those backpacks that kind of looks like a stuffed animal, has little zippers in it, and she's walking around the mall with this on, looking very cute, attracting a lot of smiles from passersby. But she was so earnest about it that she didn't do cute anymore. Anyway, we had fun with her on that day, and she had fun too. She loves shopping, and it was her mom that had recommended taking her shopping as part of the experience. And then we did our grocery shopping at the same time because she loves shopping. Doesn't matter if it's the grocery shopping or fun shopping. I hope she gets a handle on that as she gets older and has her own money to spend. So while we were out shopping, I bought something too, but it's actually for a gift. So I had recently, don't know if it was her most recent episode or the one before it, but Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel Speaks had talked about Advent jigsaw puzzles. And she sort of went through how you could make one. And I thought that would be a fantastic idea for my mom. She loves doing jigsaw puzzles. So while we were at one of the shops, I took a look at the puzzles and I settled on this one. I'll bring it in really close. There's lots of little scenes here. So I can't see what I'm showing you unless I'm peeking. So it is called Cabins in the Woods, and it appealed to me for a couple of reasons. One is, if you've been watching for a while, you know we have some family property that has some cabins on it. They're not as fancy as these cabins, I must say. And also my dad, one of his favorite things was ducks, and he has had all sorts of little, like, we often would buy him a duck themed gift, whether it be a t-shirt or a couple of us had done cross stitch with ducks on it, or he's got a number of little wooden, like sort of like decoy ducks, but nicer and smaller. Anyway, he's got a lot. He had a lot of duck things. He passed away a few years ago. Anyway, I thought that this would appeal to my mom. What I also thought was really cool about it that didn't really dawn on me until I was at the cash desk is that it also has lots of little scenes, and so what I can do is break up this puzzle into little scenes that will sort of, be able to be made up. Maybe this one might take 3 days worth of puzzle pieces and gradually do it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, A, I recommend checking out Fat Squirrel Speaks. B, I'll just briefly tell you, you get a puzzle, you take a section of the puzzle for each day and you put it in something that the person opens each day of Advent, and then they have sort of a little mini puzzle to put together that day, and then the sum of the parts, you know, creates the whole picture. So I thought that was a really cool idea. So I thought if I didn't do it right away, I might forget about it, or I might put it off, I might not do it. So I have been working on this puzzle all week. It has sucked up a lot of my time. I'm not generally a jigsaw puzzle person, although I've been enjoying doing it. It makes me sort of want to do some more. But it's amazing how much time can pass without you even realizing it, because you want to just do a little more and a little more and a little more. One day I actually set the timer so that I wouldn't exceed my time on it, and then of course when it went off I gave it a little bit longer, because that's just how I roll. So what I thought I would do, my original thought was to put it in this David's Tea advent calendar that I had from a few years ago. What I thought was kind of cool about this is that each day as you take the box out, you turn it around, and then when all of them are turned around, it creates a puzzle of its own. Now, I tried it out, and I can get, if I'm doing, it actually has 25 days, I'm doing a 1,000-piece puzzle, so that's 40 pieces a day. And I just took 40 random pieces, and it's chock full, but I can fit them. So then I thought, well, maybe that's too full. So I took a look at my advent calendar from this year, and the drawer, it's a bigger box and the drawers are bigger, and I can very easily fit 40 pieces in each one. But then I'm sort of thinking about it, and I thought, well, if I can fit the 40 pieces in here, I really like the idea of it being sort of two puzzles. Also, the benefit of that is I can fit this inside this box, and so it'll all be one compact gift. I will give this to my mom sometime, probably when we go up there this summer, and just tell her to put it away until December, and I think she'll get quite a kick out of it. So I think I'm going to try, and just if I can do it and make this work, then I think I'm going to pack it in here. Otherwise, I'll use my other calendar. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun to work on, and hopefully she has fun. And she'll have the box, she'll have the picture, and so that will help her in putting it together. You know, it's not like I want to give it to her blind and then have her do it, because I think she might find that too hard. I know I would. This thing says it's for 10 and up. I feel like a 10-year-old would struggle with this puzzle. I don't think it's easy enough for 10-year-olds, but then what do I know? So we took our granddaughter shopping on Saturday, and then Sunday it was time to de-Christmas the house. We had taken down the outside Christmas lights the weekend before, but everything else was still up. And we didn't just take things down and put them away. We did a really thorough job of reorganizing. I bought several ornament containers. Actually, I've got some sitting here because I'm going to use them for some knitting things. I'm just going to slide out of screen for a minute here. So I bought a bunch of these, which have, they come with these dividers. They're divided into four sections, and then you can put these dividers in if you want. And we did in some cases, and we didn't in others. So anyway, we put a bunch of the ornaments in here, and then also my aunt had given me, they're also over here, so just a sec, I'll grab them. I hadn't really planned on showing them, but why not? 1 second. My aunt had a bunch of these boxes, which she had gotten from another of my aunts. Apparently they used to hold candy, and I have no idea where they came from or why they had so many. But my aunt was giving a bunch away. She said that she had stored her sewing things in some of them. And I thought that would be a good idea. So I took about half a dozen of them. But while we were cleaning up our Christmas things, I thought this would be perfect for the smaller and flatter ornaments, and so I used a few of those for that. And it took us quite a while, but when our house was all de-Christmased, it just felt so good. Not only did everything, look back to normal, we just knew that everything was so well organized, and when we go to decorate again next year, everything's all in one place and it's all tidy, and it'll be easy to clean up again afterwards next year. We still had ornaments in their original boxes, like from when I bought my first Christmas ornaments after I left home. All of those were still there, all in their original boxes. And every year we'd put them back in their original boxes and stack them all up inside, big bin. Now all the ornaments are all in these ornament cases and in here. It's just so much better. Something funny happened last night. Well, funny, odd, actually. Cameron came home from work and he opened the door and he just said my name in such a way that I thought, what's going on? So I came down the stairs and he was standing there holding a pizza box with another smaller box on top and a paper bag. And he's looking at me and I said, what's going on? Where did those come from? It's not like he ever brings home dinner without checking with me first. What he didn't know is I hadn't been able to figure out what we were going to have for dinner that night, and I just decided we'd do like hamburgers and hot dogs on our little indoor grill. But we hadn't talked about any of that, so he had no idea I didn't have a real dinner planned. Anyway, he's standing there with this pizza. And apparently, as he was getting out of his car, this guy went past him, said hello, and disappeared. And when he came up to the door, the food was sitting there. So first thing we did was call the company, the pizza company, but they have a central order desk. And so all the locations, you dial like one number. And so he had no record of it. He wasn't able to tell us where it was supposed to have gone. There's no number in the phone book for our local branch of that company, so we couldn't phone there. So he ended up going to each of our next door neighbors just to see if they had ordered it, but they hadn't. So we had dinner. We had free dinner. I would call that my something good for this week, except it wasn't very good. It was like a weird kind of pizza. It had a white sauce. Sorry, but in my opinion, pizza sauce should be red. And it had chicken and pineapple, and half of it had some ham and tomato, which is kind of a weird combination, and it didn't even taste that good. But anyway, I guess the good part is, yeah, we got free dinner and I didn't have to cook. On the other hand, it's nothing like what I would have ordered. It also had cheesy bread and some pop, so Cam drank one of those bottles of pop and we had some of the cheesy bread. But yeah, wasn't so great, but it was kind of weird. I'm sure it happens all the time. I did have, I think it was about a month or two, someone rang the bell and tried to deliver food to me, but it was actually for the woman who lived next door. So I was able to, point him in the right direction. That was the other strange thing, is nobody even rang the doorbell or knocked on the door. And maybe they just saw Cameron pulling in the driveway, so figured he would see it when he got to the front door. Obviously had been prepaid because we didn't pay for it. Anyway, very, very odd. I'm sure like I said, I'm sure it happens all the time. That was just strange. As for what's coming up this week, well, we are going ice skating on Saturday evening. It's our granddaughter's birthday party, and so we're gonna go skate with them. I was gonna say the last time we skated might have even been our grandson's birthday party, ice skating party, but I think we've skated once or twice since then. Anyway, it should be fun. We don't ice skate very often, so that'll be a good way to spend a Saturday evening. The upcoming couple of weeks are a bit up in the air. Our daughter has to go for jury duty on Monday, and if she gets selected, she'll be serving on a jury for another couple of weeks or so, in which case I will be doing after-school care for our granddaughter. If she doesn't get selected, then life goes on as normal. So depending on whether or not she gets selected, it may have an impact on my recording schedule. Usually I try and set aside a whole day to record and edit and upload. It could be a little trickier if I'm doing it with, kind of when I have to leave kind of mid-afternoon and go do that. So we'll see. Hopefully she doesn't get selected, and I'll see you next week as usual. But if she does, there may not be an episode next week. We'll see. Now it's time for something good, and it's something really, really good. So I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on Vlogmas, but I don't think I've talked about it on any of my regular episodes. So at the staff Christmas party back in December, Cameron learned that he was receiving a trip to Vegas as a 30-year employee. This is something his company's been doing for quite a while, and every 2 years they'll take the 30-year employees that fall into that time frame and their spouses and go to Vegas for a weekend. So we knew it was happening, we just didn't know when, and Cameron learned earlier this week that it's going to coincide with my birthday weekend in mid-March. So it is going to be quite a whirlwind of a weekend. We leave the Friday, we come back on the Monday, and in all that time, apparently we are going to see a concert, a Vegas show, a Golden Knights hockey game, and do a helicopter tour of the Grand Canyon. Cameron was talking to the manager of one of the stores that he oversees, and he told him that when they did the helicopter tour, they also landed and had lunch in the Grand Canyon. So how cool would that be? I don't expect we'll be doing much resting and relaxing, and probably not getting a lot of sleep, but it sounds like an absolutely fantastic time. And we know from experience that they do things first class all the way. I know we'll stay in a really nice hotel and have some beautiful meals. And what I hadn't thought about that Cameron mentioned is we will reunite with a lot of the people that we went on his 25-year trip with. That happened back in 2018, and we did a Mediterranean cruise. And we are just a fairly small group. I think there were 36 of us in all. That includes the employees, their spouses, and the people from the company that were hosting us, the owner and her daughter and husband. And so, we got to know each other pretty well over that week or so that we were away. So we'll reunite with some of those people, the ones who haven't already retired, and the ones that are obviously still with the company. And Also, I believe that the trip wouldn't have happened in, well, I know the trip did not happen in 2021, and so I imagine there'll be the group that should have gone back then too. So not sure exactly how many people it will be, but it sounds just like a fabulous time. So something definitely to look forward to. And on that happy note, it is time to say goodbye. So thank you as always for watching. I hope to see you again next week. Take care until then and enjoy your crafting. Bye.